Hi, Alice. Thanks so much for coming to my office hour. My name is Goli. From your message, I understand that you had some difficulties understanding the twins function from the lecture, and you're here for help. Great. So in the meantime, in this process, feel free to stop me to ask any follow-up questions or any clarifications that you may need. And please share your thoughts and ideas in the process with me. Great. So let's go. So first of all, in order to understand how to implement twins function, it's better to understand what twins function is and what it does in plain English. So from your understanding, can you tell me what is the input and expected output of the twins function? Great. So the input is a string imp. We can call it imp. And what is the expected output? So the function outputs a string output where every character in imp is duplicated. Exactly. So it looks like you have a wonderful understanding of what the twins function is and what it's expected to do. But let's also run some examples to make sure that everything is good to go. So what are the expected outputs for each of these input strings? Exactly. A becomes AA, ABC becomes AA, BB, CC, and this is my poor name with a lot of characters. Great, so this becomes PGOOLLRROOKKHH. Wonderful, so looks like we're fully at a complete understanding of what the behavior of the twins function should be. So now let's go and think about how to implement this. So it's always great to think about some intermediate steps or simpler problems. So the major part of this twins function is the duplicating part of it. So it's great as a first step to think about how do we duplicate characters. So let's think about this simplified version of the problem where we're given an input character I, and we're expected to output a string O, where O is the duplicate of the character I. So what is the expected behavior of this simple problem? Simpler, not very simple, but yes, A becomes AA, B becomes BB, and C becomes CC. Wonderful. So if you look at the output, we actually looked at the first half and the second half is always the same character. And it's the character that was given as input to us. So I is being repeated twice, right? Or I is being attached to itself. Does that remind you of an operator on strings and characters that we covered in the lecture? Exactly. So it feels like I is being concatenated to I. And do you remember how would we represent that in code? Great. So O would be initialized to I concatenated with itself, and we would represent that with the addition operator. Wonderful. So it looks like now we know how to duplicate characters. So now we can think about the main problem. So when designing algorithms, it might be a great idea to observe our human brain and how would our human brain approach problems. So and then convert that to pseudocode and then pseudocode to code. So let's see how my brain and your brain would duplicate the characters of ABC. Let's actually walk through it. So exactly, we would look at the first character, A, and we would duplicate it. And then we would look at the second character and duplicate it. And then the third character and duplicate it, and then put everything together. And that's AABBCC. Wonderful. So if we want to describe this in pseudocode, what did we exactly do? Exactly. So go through, go through characters of input and duplicate each character. Great. So let's actually think about this in code. I'm going to stop sharing and start sharing my code screen. So I have some basic parts of the code written here, and now we can think about the implementation of the tweens function. So for going through the characters of the input string, we need to go through them or iterate through them. Do you remember what would we use here in order to iterate through characters? Exactly, we need to use a for loop. So the syntax of the for loop, exactly, for element in input. And now we're going through every character of the input string. And for duplicating them, we kind of covered it in our simplified version of the problem. Exactly, we use the addition operator. So the only thing left here is to somehow store this duplicated version of the character in the output. How would we go about that? So we can initialize output with this, but the issue with initializing is that every time in each iteration of the for loop, we are rewriting that output variable, right? So we kind of have to keep the previous duplicated characters in output and add this new character to them. Does that remind you of something? Exactly, concatenation. So we need to concatenate this new duplicated character with whatever that already is in the output. Wonderful. And is there something missing here? Right, we need to return our output as the final result. And that's it. That's our implemented tweens function. And to make sure, let's save it and run it. All of our example characters, input strings. Great. It looks like it's passing all of our tests, and we have our implemented tweens function. Do you have any questions, or are there some parts that you don't understand? Great. So feel free to email me if you ended up having more questions on this or other topics. And thanks so much for coming to my office hour. Hope to see you in the future office hours. Thanks.